I've been working on having more patience. I've been working on being more gracious. Can't kill myself for the time I wasted. Learn lessons come with elevation. I've been working on having more patience. I've been working on being more gracious. Can't kill myself for the time I wasted. Learn lessons come with elevation. I'm on a mission to achieve some greatness.
What is going on? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect. Yeah. All right. So I want to thank you for coming on. This is the 9th episode of Lived Experiences. Tonight we are going to be talking about growing with your partner. And then I have on with me Keith. Keith, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, my name is Keith. Some of my families call me Triple M. That's funny, ministers, most ministers, but I'm Keith. Part owner of Purpose Talk and Pursuing Purpose Incorporated.
Awesome. Yeah, and Keith, you've been married for like 20 years now, right?
Not, not too, you funny. We going on 13 years, but we've been
It's not
together
bad.
for more.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you've already reached like
We've
a
been married
threshold.
for a while. Yeah,
Yeah, so like, congrats to y'all.
thank you.
So, for me, when I think of growing with your partner, I think of it from like a holistic aspect. And I also think that a lot of times we don't understand that the person that I married now is not going to be the same person that I'm going to be married to in 7 years. And I think a lot of times what happens is we miss that connection, we miss that changing point to connect with the new version of the person that we are married or coupled with. What do you think?
So, so repeat the question one more time. I want to make sure that I get this right.
Yeah. So when you think of growing with your partner, what do you
Yeah.
think?
So, it's a wide range. I'm going to keep it, short. So,
Yeah.
what I think about when you're talking about growing with your partner is pretty much intertwining with each other. You know how the Bible says that, and the two shall become one flesh. It's
Mhm.
pretty much, it's just like a jigsaw puzzle. You
Yeah.
know, putting together the right pieces to make sure that you guys are selfless, that you're willing to compromise, and that you're truly ready to create new experiences together
Hmm.
and not trying to recreate things that you've grown to know your individual self.
And it's even more difficult for those that have kids because I know for me and my wife, when we got married, our first daughter was on the way 3 months later. We
Yeah.
never had a chance to define what marriage is with just us. It was just it was engagement, parenthood, basically. So I'm in a season now where we're in a redefining season. Me and my wife, we are more intentional about spending time together. We're intentional about our communications. Intentional about verbalizing our dislikes of each other and in a respectful way. And so we're coming to know who this new person is because it's rough. And I think had I not been married to my wife, I would have given up. I'm not even gonna lie to you, bro. It gets rough.
Yeah. They're your strength. And so I'm gonna let you go ahead. I'm not gonna interrupt you.
No, I was done. I was waiting on you.
Oh, okay. So this is what I can tell you.
Hmm.
But definitely with growing with your partner, right? And I'll be candid and open so everybody can understand. Because me and my wife, we met in our early 20s. Like I
Yeah.
think our mid 20s. We were like in our mid 20s. And we got married at 26. We got
Yeah.
married at 26. We talked a lot. We talked about a lot of stuff. But let me tell you, I'm going to give you a defining moment where I felt like I really grew on my wife. And this was actually after we got married. This is the funny thing. Because one thing, before I talk about the actual place where we talked, right?
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want everybody to know is this right here. And I realized this. Me and my wife was married for a couple of years. And you know how sometimes women have things that they say to you, you listen, but you don't understand. You listen,
Mm-hmm.
I know you hear me, but you're not understanding the thing, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
for years I was like, what's she talking about? Like, I'm listening to her. I know I'm a good listener, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll say this. One day, this was right before I started working at my prior job. We had a discussion, and it was one of those discussions where I was like, you know what? Let me sit down with my wife and really listen to her. Let's really conversate. I'm gonna allow her to talk, and she's gonna allow me to talk, and we're gonna say whatever it is on our heart, not disrespectfully, but we're gonna say whatever's on our heart, and we're not gonna judge, but we're gonna find solutions,
Mm-hmm.
and let's take this time because one thing that I realize is this right here: a lot of people get married, right? And they
Yeah.
get married with intentions. You know, I believe everybody gets married with good intentions. But one thing that people don't realize is this: when you get married, they think it's going to be good. It's going to be everything is going to be cake. It's going to be butter, even
Mm-hmm.
if you have money. But
Yeah.
one thing that we take into our marriage is our own individual self. And this is one thing that I talked to Reese about. I realized that I was trying to not force my wife, but I was used to a way of life as an individual based off how I grew up and based off how I became up until the 20s. You know what I'm saying? I grew
Yeah.
up in the hood. I grew up in the struggle, not really too much around my dad. So, I grew up day by day, make that day work however it is. You know what I'm saying? Not really going for more, just dealing with my head above water. My wife grew up with her dad, grew up with her mom, saw her dad work, saw him do stuff and pay bills and the regular home. The mom was at home, and so she had the stable home, and that's what she was used to. And
Yeah.
you have two people coming, one from the hood, from the struggle, and one who pretty much understand the stability of a home and what the roles of a man, a woman. And so we never like physically fought or anything like that, but we had a lot of disagreements
Mm-hmm.
until I stepped out of myself, right? Until I was like, you know what? I can't continue like to be the same way because I really want this thing to work. And in order for this thing to work, I can't always look at my wife as like she's the problem. And I was saying to myself, no, let me have let's have this hard conversation. And bro, let me tell you, we had this one conversation at the table, and we reciprocated and we talked to each other. It was awesome because what was happening was I realized that God was telling me this right here, and I'll never forget. A lot of times we look at marriage from the fallen state of man, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
How they got kicked out of the garden and they had all these things that they had to do. And we still gonna have to do them. Like women are still gonna have labor pains. We still gotta work, you know what I'm saying, by the sweat of our
Yeah.
brow, things like that. But I began to look at my marriage from the standpoint of I'm in right standing with God. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to work on being in right standing with God with this relationship. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna start looking at my marriage not from the fallen state. I'm gonna look at it as if we're in the garden experience. So I started taking more time to actually understand my wife. And what started to happen, Jackie, is this right here.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that were in me that were missing. And the only way that I can have those holes filled was I had to pretty much look at myself in the mirror, and be like, you know what? You did have these issues. This could have happened. But guess what? Now that you're married, you two are to create a new experience. You don't look at what individual, yes, you guys have individual life that you live, but now that you're together, you become a new creature. You're a new thing now. So that
Yeah.
means that you can now start creating new experiences. You get what I'm saying? You define what your marriage is. You define where it's going to be, but you gotta continuously compromise and work together, even through the hard conversations. Had a hard conversations early, so you
Mm-hmm.
can get used to expressing stuff with each other, and that's both men and women. Especially for men, black men, got to learn how to be willing to expose our more, not I ain't gonna say sensitive side, but our more emotional side you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, to our mate so they can know how to help us and which way to push us.
Yeah. I find it really fascinating that it's like the first step to coming into alignment or understanding our significant other is moving ourselves out the way. I know for me, I'm a dreamer. So I'm like, I see what I want in the future. And I'm like, so many times I got caught up looking at what I wanted in the future that I was living in the future. I wasn't living in the present. And so I missed a lot of things that I shouldn't have. And I think that's a hard place to be in, because when you have that dynamic, my wife, she believes in my dream, but I also need to be able to support the now. And I can't do that living in the future. So we had to sit down, and we're currently in a phase where we're reconstructing everything. Like we're rebuilding the foundation from everything from the bottom up, because I want to spend my life with her and she wants to spend her life with me, but she can't do it with the current version of me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I have to understand that, no, I dropped the ball. So you need to come back, restructure, and rebuild. And that's okay. One thing that my mentor told me is that when it when it seems as if things are falling apart, it's for two reasons. It's either because it wasn't put together properly or it wasn't maintained. And in either case, you might as well just go ahead and start from the ground up. Put in the work, you want to be there. You got to put in the work to be there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And this is one thing I can tell you, Jackie, is this right here. And this is as a brother and a friend and all that. One thing that I want you to always remember, and this is something that I had to work on, because when I met my wife, like, I didn't have a lot. I'm not even going to didn't have a lot. I was when I say I was a regular guy from the hood, I probably had a job, ain't had a piece of a car, thank God I met the kind of woman that I met. You have an awesome wife also. But one thing I realize is this right here. Everybody, because right now what you're having is what I call a Genesis moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a moment where it's like, I'm finna start from scratch. And I'm saying that you're gonna stop working and get another job. Sure. Start yourself off fresh. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
One thing that we have to remember as men is, especially when it comes, because you were talking about your dreams, your vision, living in the future. One thing that I realize is that if I'm married to my wife and we're one, that means that wherever I'm going in the future, she has to be tied into it, right? And
Yes.
let me tell you something. That's what we came up with. Pursuing purpose. That's what we came up with. Purpose Talk, CWP Apparel. Y'all see the women clothing. Everything that me and my wife established, we talk. We have ideas. We fling them out there. Certain people. This is one of the key things. There are certain people who we have in our circle. You get what I'm saying? You, of course, being one of them. We have certain people in our circle that, and this is going to sound not bad, but I want everybody to understand this. We have people in our circle that's going somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I'm very intentional when it comes to who I'm around and who I conversate with, because this is one thing that I realize is, especially when it comes to your relationship with your wife, the conversations that I was having at first were very mediocre. I always had God in my life, you know what I'm saying? But things talking about, like, especially when it came to finances, and that was an area of my life that was like it was like a stumbling block. Not that I was bad with money, but I was just struggling to get more. You get what I'm saying? I was
Exactly.
more for my family until I had one of those moments where it was like, it's got to be something that I'm doing. You get what I'm saying? Because I'm responsible for something that I'm doing. I'm not going to go back, but maybe I have to look back to go forward, because not saying like Lot Weiss and turn into a pill of salt, that kind of thing, but kind of like looking at the ways that I had and what really affected my relationship. Like, I was mediocre, bro, and my wife is very ambitious. You know that. My wife is ambitious. So I was like, God, you know what? I have to either match my wife or I have to be better so that I can be able to lead her, you know? And every day I begin to practice on, like, I'm a motivational speaker kind of guy. So I look at motivational speeches every single morning. And I even listen to the hard stuff that kind of like made me uncomfortable. I kind of make myself uncomfortable because
Mhm.
once I start moving in uncomfortable spaces, having those uncomfortable conversations about finances, about what we're trying to get. Let's write down this plan. Let's actually start working on stuff. And bro, pursuing purpose started to happen. And even like the conversation between me and my wife, because we began to intentionally come to the table and just talk about random stuff
Yeah.
out open, it opened up so many other doors, bro. Like, you know, you already know, like I'm not saying that I'm like this big millionaire, you know what I'm saying? But who I was before
Yeah.
to now, I always tell people, like, because right now I'm a manager, and so everybody say that I'm a very self-aware person, and I tell them that it's all because of my relationship. It's like once you're the kind of person, once you give me a step in, or if I feel like I could do something, oh, it's over now because I'm going for it. And that's how
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was in marriage with my wife. Once I realized that conversating and we were moving forward, even though there were baby steps, bro, it gave me so much confidence, and my wife began to see even my wife began to see so many things growing within me from the first time she met, because she always tell people, how you met Reed? How you met Keith? Man, I heard the first time so I guess she lightened me up. Fell in love is the first time she heard me pray, you know?
Mhm.
And so I always try to make sure that I'm growing, make sure that we're conversating, because growing with your mate is not just, oh, let's get more money, right? Because a lot of people think that relationships are financially based, like you got to have money, right? But
Mhm.
number one thing that you got to have is communication, growth, and being willing to tackle the hard stuff early. You know,
Yeah.
just like right now, you're having your Genesis moment. There's nothing wrong with living for the future, but this is how I would tell you: work hard now and preparing for your future. Right?
Yeah.
Tie your
Yeah.
wife in everything that you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Because she's gonna be your number one motivator. She should be your number one support system. Like, bro, there's nobody that's that's on top of my wife other than God, that every time I come on, like, she believes in me. She speaks words of life. And sometimes when she speaks into me, it's not always the, oh babe. Sometimes it's a hard word. No, you can't sit down. You're not finna get
Yeah.
comfortable.
That was my next question for you. How, you have these hard conversations. How do you deal with the, not, I don't want to say criticisms because it has like a negative connotation attached to it, but sometimes your wife has to give you that hard truth.
Yeah.
And it's something that I have a hard time accepting because sometimes to me, it feels like, oh, you don't believe in me like the way you say
Yeah.
you did. How do you deal with that?
So I could tell you this. Listen, and I'm gonna be so like I said about finances, right? Finances
Mm-hmm.
were it was something that I never was taught. You know what I'm saying? I was always a part of the struggle. So
Yeah.
lived, I always lived just as I was always living off survival mode. I could say that's
Mm-hmm.
a perfect word. Living off survival mode instead of living off progression and growing. And so one of the hardest conversations that me and my wife would always have was around bills, was around getting a better job or something like that. You know, so in my mind, I used to always get so defensive. I'm
Yeah.
talking, I will either shut down or we'll start to like argue a little bit. We'll never yell or fuss, but we used to have a lot of differences, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what it took, bro? I'm gonna tell you honestly. It took for me because I had to have a moment where I stepped back, right? It was literally as if God kind of like I stepped back. I kind of looked at the situation as a whole, right? And I'm like, okay, my wife is in need of something. I
Yeah.
got to make sure that I am the one to provide. And the Bible says that in Genesis, and I always go back to Genesis from the foundation of the very first relationship, where God looked at Adam and he said Adam was alone. You know, he ain't tell him
Mm-hmm.
to go hug Adam. The Bible says that he pulled Eve out of Adam. So that means that whatever Adam was missing, it was God put it from in him, right? So that
Yeah.
means that Eve was supposed to be a reflection of Adam, his helper. He didn't say his slave. It says that she was his helper, right? So whatever he needed help with, she was supposed to be the person to come and say, "Nah, I got you," right? And so I look at it like that. Like I look at like who else would I rather have who loves me, right? That because
Mm-hmm.
that's what it is. If I know this person loves me and I know she's here for me, every conversation some conversations is going to hurt, not because it's out of hate, but because it's out of love. And
Mm-hmm.
about this, and for your wife to return back into you, right? Then she has to return back into a space that she can fit. But you
Yeah.
have all this other stuff bottled up and stuff that you don't grew up with throughout the years, because we do. Think about it. For me, I had so many. I was emotionless to my wife at times. I didn't want to talk about finance or whatever we had. I was the kind of person like, yeah, let's just deal with it. Let's just deal with above water, because that's what I was used to. But guess what?
Mm-hmm.
That was me being selfish. And I started to look at my wife, and I used to be like, man, it's not fair to her. It's not fair to her. It's not fair to like where God really wants us to have this relationship. If I continue like this, then this relationship is really going to fail, and it's going to be because of me. Now, my wife still probably would have been faithful. She still probably would have been with me, but she would have been miserable. She would have been working hard. She would have been hurt.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to be the man I'm supposed to be the man that God entrusted with his daughter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and that's when I began to take away my pride. And when we did have conversations and those hard truths started to come out, I began to talk back, like kind of like build a conversation around it. You get what I'm saying? So it wasn't just her speaking at me, it was us having a conversation and like, okay, I know you have this. Oh, this is what happened in this is what happened in this time. And instead of it being like a therapy session, it began to be like a healing session, because then the conversations, because I accepted the hard truths, it
Yeah.
was started to go back and forward. You understand what I'm saying? So it wasn't just
Mm-hmm.
my mistake. It was sometimes she was saying that, nah, I can do better at this and this. All I'm saying is this right here, babe. And then I begin to like, oh, okay, so this ain't pretty bad, because
Yeah.
think about it. Jackie, that's your wife, bro. That
Yeah.
is you. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to be able to wash your wife with the word. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that is if you're able to. She should be the only person that should be able to critique you 100%. I'm talking about Jackie. No, that's not right, because
Mm-hmm.
she wants to succeed. She's there with you every day. She's there with the grind, and she believes in your dreams because she's a part of it. So
Yeah.
you take away pride. You have to take away that older man. You know what I'm saying? Look at
Mm-hmm.
yourself, man, and say, bro, I'm not finna do this. And you
Yeah.
also have to be around other men and right that's gonna encourage that kind of behavior.
Yeah. Let me tell you, bro, because my brother-in-law called me today. My brother-in-law, and he was pouring into me because lately it's been a lot. And so he told me, he was like, you take care of her needs, and then she can have the ability to feed into your dreams. And he was telling me how, like, he took care of all the finances. So his wife didn't have to struggle financially. So when it came time to say, hey, I want to build a business, his wife was like, okay, let me look up into getting the LLC. Let me look up to doing this. And so it was like, it's clicked with me, because it was like, if I can lift off that burden, it frees her to now become a more integral part of the dream. And it's, for me, I get hyper focused. So it's like I have blinders on sometimes, and all I'm looking at is the finish line. And sometimes I don't know why, but I feel like sometimes my wife knows everything I know. And she's like, how am I supposed to know? You didn't tell me. And then I have to sit there and be like, oh, I'm sorry. So it's also about me having to keep her involved and communicating with her every step of the way. So he was telling me all of this, and I'm just like, it seems really simple, but it was so easy to get lost in that habit, you know?
You won't go ahead. You won't. Let me tell you something. I'm gonna
Yeah,
tell you is your family is your first ministry.
yeah,
It's your first line of business. It is your first everything. Once you get married, it is not just you. You know what I'm saying? It is you become like one mind, right? And,
hmm,
and I'll say this because your wife, women are scientifically able to use more of their
yeah,
brain than a man.
hmm,
Like, let me tell you, my wife, when I really tapped into my wife, let me tell you, my wife be in this office, this little office.
yeah,
She got all kind of stuff in this office. I'm talking about she be on here for CWP and be talking to me about what the bills that we got to have next, babe. And then, like, because she's super organized, you know what I'm saying? I'm more of the idea driven person. Like, hey, babe, I think we should do this. Oh, for purpose talk, maybe we should do this. And you know what I'm saying? I'm a very creative person that we kind of link together, right? It kind of like matches together. But I learned how utilizing my wife is like the number one. She's my number one asset ever. God makes sure that you had a number one asset, you know.
yeah,
And even if you're super focused, you got to think about it like this: is our company has a CEO, but our CEO she always has to have an assistant or like an assistant manager under her. She's imagine you as the manager is walking around just doing stuff. You begin to get overwhelmed. You begin to get overworked, but you have to learn how to delegate, right? Delegate
hmm,
those responsibilities, delegating the relationship. There are times where people used to say, "I think your wife wear the pants," and I be telling them, "No, that's what y'all think. This is how I run. This is how I run my house. I'm still the head of the household, but the way that my house functions is not like your house. You get what I'm saying? Like my
yeah,
wife is very strong in certain areas, and God made sure that I had a wife like that, and I utilize her strengths, but I also make sure that I pay attention to the things that overwhelm her, so I make sure that I can take that off. You know what
hmm,
I'm saying? As a husband,
yeah,
this is how we're gonna work. So it's kind of like, and it's good that you're having this moment of let me step back, let me have my Genesis moment because there's some things in me that I have to get right. There's some things in the house that I've established that maybe wasn't right. I don't know if that's what you're doing, but it's
hmm,
it's kind of like everything, and it's good because you want to make sure that if I'm starting from here, I'm not going back to this action. I'm not going back. This is how I think. So if you're hyper focused, that means that you're not focused on one thing, and that is
the present.
exactly the present. If you work hard right now in the present, grind hard
Mhm.
now, the future gonna take care of itself.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
let me tell you, for me, my thing was it was like if I can build this dream, everything else is taken care of.
you can't
And
by yourself.
right. And it's like in the midst of building the dream, we don't know how long it's going to take to build. So what happens in the meantime, you know? And so I thank God for my wife because we've been having hard conversations for the past couple weeks, and we're we're literally digging up all the weeds out of our relationship, and we're planting, and we know that the ground is going to be fertile because we're
Yes.
making sure everything is right from, and that also involves like redirecting the focus of the relationship. It's not The focus of the relationship can never be the kids. It
You're right.
has to be me and the wife.
Yep.
And that's a hard place to be in because I love these little people,
Mm-hmm.
but they cannot be the center of my
Yeah.
relationship. So that's a hard place to be in.
Listen, there's a couple of things that I was gonna say. First, it's funny that you said that because one of the things that me and my wife were saying that we have to make date night in our relationship. Like we got to find some things to like kind of like re-spark the fire every now and then. To try to
Hmm.
not figure out, but see why we fell in love, why we in this relationship. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes
Yeah.
I pop out with a prayer sometime on her, and she just that's what I feel. It's kind of like those random things, and it's because one thing I can tell you is, and this is number one, a happy wife is really it's a happy life for real, because a lot of us think that our dream is just, I have a business that I want to run, babe. And now sometimes your wife have ideas, and those ideas are tied up into how much she trusts you, how much she can talk to you. She has to get comfortable with talking to you, because sometimes if we're blocking women out, we blocking our wives out, then they're gonna just stay at their place, and they're gonna be faithful until it lasts. Especially with faithful women, it's few. It's very when you have a faithful woman, that's what she is. She's going to support you. But if you don't want her support, then she's going to step back, and you're going to be doing things alone. And that's where I always think about this. This is gonna sound super spiritual, right? Because I love the word. And think about this. In the Bible, you remember in the Old Testament where they were walking around the desert for 40 years and 40 nights. They were walking around 40 days for no reason, right? Well, why was the reason, right? The Bible says that Moses sent he sent out the 12 spies to the land, right, that God had promised them. But looked at the now. They looked at it and was like, we can't do that. It was too. And guess what? Because they came back with that negative report and they whined and all that kind of stuff, where it cost them 40 years. You know what I'm saying? Think about that. Like your wife, you conversating with your wife, having those hard conversations. Now are those giants, are those roadblocks, all of those things are being torn down. The enemy doesn't like that, because what do he want? He wants us to he wants men to be more head first. You know what I'm saying? I'm tunnel vision. Anybody else that's in my way, I'm going to try to get it regardless. You don't want to do that, Jackie. You want to, if you go be tunnel vision, you want your wife to be within that vision. You within your within your view, because that's going to be one support. That should be your open space to where you come home and be like, babe, I think I messed it up. He's like, can you show me? Oh no, let me show you how to do this. And I've been thinking about this. You might come home one day and say, hey babe, guess what? We remember we was doing the thing, and part of that. She's you. Not paying attention to her is not paying attention to yourself. That's that's how I see it. Like my number one asset, I always tell my wife, she is the gold. She is not just the love of my life, but she is one of the best things that God has ever given me. She is truly my helpmate. You know what I'm saying? But where I am now, I'm not where I want to be, but I am definitely in a good place. And it's all because the prayers of my wife, the conversations that we've had, the organizational skills that I've grown to understand. And that's all of that is together. But it all started from that one place of understanding it ain't my wife that got a problem. I have a problem. And she said, oh no, I have a problem too. And that's where you got at right now.
Yeah. We're again, everything is being rebuilt, including the trust. And I think that's okay. I think now's a great time to do it.
Yeah.
So before we go, I want us to each leave a piece of advice for everyone that's watching.
Okay.
For me, I think when you're growing with your partner, you can never get tired of extending grace. I think understanding grace and forgiveness, because as they are stumbling, they're learning. And one thing that, again, my brother-in-law, he told me, he said, don't create more hurdles for yourself. He said, and then when you don't create more hurdles for yourself, all you now have to focus on is that the hurdles that life is going to give you regardless. And I was like, wow,
That's good.
What would you say, bro?
One thing that I would say is this right here. When it comes to growing with your partner, the first thing that you want to do is look at yourself in the mirror, right? Look at yourself in the mirror and put yourself in that person's shoes. Love, you cherish that person.
Yeah.
Number one thing that you have to take away is pride. The pride of thinking that you know everything, the pride of thinking that you've arrived in a place to where I know where the relationship is going to go. Understand that the relationship is not a one-way street, it's not a two-way street, it's one way. We both going this one way. Now, we both become one. Be willing to put in the hard work early so that as you do the hard work in the early years, as you continue to go along, the hurdles, like how you said, the stumbling blocks will only be what life brings. You know what I'm saying? Whether that be financial or whether that be in being around people, whatever it is, you know, the one thing that will stand is that relationship, that knowing that we're going to grow together mentally. We're going to first grow together mentally, spiritually, and financially, because those all work hand to hand. But be willing to do the work, take away pride, be confident in who you are, and knowing that you're going to grow together, regardless of how hard it's going to be.
Facts. I appreciate that. I ain't gonna lie. I'm gonna come back and rewatch this and take some notes.
No problem.
Where can everybody find you, bro?
You know, they could follow me on Facebook. Y'all know, I actually changed my name to Triple M. On Facebook. I'm on Instagram. You can follow Pursuing Purpose on Facebook. I actually do like little small like videos on Purpose Talk in the morning. It's random in the morning. You could catch me. I do updates, motivational things. I am actually working on motivational speaking. You know what I'm saying? So Instagram, y'all will see me on live. Purpose Talk.
And CWP is having a sale right now, right?
Right now, CWP, everything has to go. This sale is going to be going on for a while. It's $10. Everything must go. They go on the site. Everything is $10.
After the live, can you put the website in the chat for us?
Yes, I definitely will.
All right. Thank you so much, bro.
We're shipping it out fast. Like, it's not going to be 5 to 10 business days. It's going to be to you. Well, it's the holiday, so I might be telling them a little. Get it to you fast.
Yeah.
It's high quality. It's not nothing cheap. We're sending out.
Facts. Thank you so much, bro. I really appreciate your time and the wisdom that you shared with us today.
No problem. Bless you, man.
God bless. Have a good evening.
All right.